The Skyward Guardian watches from afar, as Kale and Lyra face a cliffhanger battle, with Alaric and Nyx observing. The stakes rise for all heroes. Subscribe to Turmoil Studio to follow the adventure. Order, once chosen, begins to attract attention. Not all attention arrives with intent. Some arrives with patience. Terenfall did not change overnight. It continued precisely, efficiently, without pause. The city's new rhythm held. Corridors flowed. Patrols adjusted before deviation formed. Compliance replaced hesitation so completely that resistance no longer found purchase. The doctrine was no longer enforced. It was internalized. Civilians moved with awareness of boundaries they did not remember agreeing to. Guards intervened early, gently, decisively, conflict prevented before it could declare itself. The city functioned with a smoothness that bordered on elegance. And elegance, once achieved, became visible. High within a fractured tower left untouched by siege or repair, Saren opened his eyes. He had not slept. The city moved through him in patterns rather than images. He felt decisions resolve before voices spoke them. He felt roots correct themselves without signal. He felt fear compress, not vanish, but align. Then, his vision extended beyond Terenfall, beyond walls, beyond doctrine. Something vast registered the city's rhythm, not as threat, not as promise, but as deviation from balance. Saren's breath caught. "This isn't escalation," he whispered. "It's declaration." His hands trembled not from fear, but from recognition. Elsewhere, beyond the outer logistics routes where doctrine thinned into infrastructure, Varlock observed without interference. He wore no armor, carried no insignia. Absence marked him more clearly than presence ever could. He watched supply flows tighten, watched redundancy collapse into efficiency, watched patrol rotations settle into repeatable certainty, predictable, not weak but readable. He marked nothing. He altered nothing. The city was not to be touched yet. It was to be understood. Beyond the walls, where siege engines rested unused and shadows pooled between broken stone, Alaric stood among the fallen knights. He did not consult reports. He listened, not to sound, to rhythm. "The city has chosen structure over trust," he said calmly. A knight shifted, waiting. "That makes it strong," Alaric continued. "And brittle." He turned his gaze toward Terenfall, expression unreadable. "We do not strike doctrine," he said. "We let it prove what it protects. Far deeper still, where darkness did not conceal but replaced form itself, Vanar observed the city's alignment with quiet interest. He felt the doctrine settle into place like a blade finding its balance point. "They have chosen certainty," he murmured. "Good." Around him, shadows stirred in recognition. Certainty creates belief. Belief creates obedience. A pause. "And obedience," he added softly, "creates fragility." He turned away from the vision. "Prepare the guardians," he said. "Not for pressure, for inevitability. Above all of it, beyond banners, beyond doctrine, beyond shadow, the Skyward Guardian watched. Wings folded, presence absolute. The city glowed faintly beneath drifting cloud, its movement lines too deliberate to be natural, too precise to be free. The balance had not broken, but it had shifted. Skyward did not descend. Not yet. Within Terenfall, Theron expanded doctrine margins by increments too small to alarm. Seraphine felt the child's light record constraint rather than resisted. Kale walked streets that no longer argued with authority, but no longer spoke freely either. The city stood intact, aligned, observed. The siege had ended without victory. The doctrine had succeeded without celebration. And somewhere between shadow and sky, forces older than Crown or Rebellion had begun to pay attention not to fear, not to fire, but to what a city was willing to become in order to remain perfect. The awakening was complete. The reckoning had not yet begun. The first anomaly was not violent. It was absence. A transit corridor in the lower tiers failed to register movement for 11 seconds longer than its predictive window allowed. No alert triggered. No alarm sounded. The system adjusted, rerouting flow before awareness could form. But Saren felt it. Not as error, as hesitation. He rose slowly from the tower floor, palms pressed against stone, still warm from the city's pulse. The doctrine was efficient, but efficiency depended on assumptions. Assumptions required belief, and belief, once patterned, could be disturbed. Something had brushed the system from outside its logic. Saren closed his eyes again. This time, he did not look at Terenfall. He looked upward. The clouds parted in layers too smooth to be wind-driven. Light diffused without source, spreading evenly rather than falling. The air itself seemed to pause, as if waiting for permission to continue. Skyward remained distant, vast, unreadable, but no longer uninvolved. Within the citadel, Theron reviewed pattern deltas without expression. They were minor, acceptable, within tolerance. Yet, they clustered not around weakness, but around choice points where human discretion had once existed and doctrine now preempted it. He adjusted parameters by fractions. The city complied. Kao watched the change ripple outward from a balcony overlooking the mid-districts. He could not name what troubled him, only that people now moved as though already anticipating correction. They were no longer asking what was allowed. They were guessing what would be optimal. That's the danger, Thorne said quietly beside him. When people stop choosing, but still believe they are. Below them, a patrol gently redirected a small group of workers without explanation. The workers complied immediately. No protest, no confusion, just acceptance. Riven frowned. They didn't even look back. Lyra's eyes followed the group until they vanished into the grid of streets. They've learned the rhythm. And rhythms, Riven replied, can be broken. Beyond the outer districts, Varlock altered his position for the first time since arrival. Not closer to the city, farther away. From elevation, doctrine revealed itself more clearly. Flow lines tightened toward the citadel. Redundancy thinned at the edges. Authority no longer radiated outward. It circulated inward. A strong design. A dangerous one. He committed the pattern to memory. Alaric felt the same inward pull from his vantage beyond the siege works. Doctrine had given the city a spine. But spines, once set, limited flexibility. The blade has been forged, he said to the fallen knights assembled behind him. Now it must be tested. No orders followed. None were needed. Deep within shadow, Vanar convened no council. He required no confirmation. The Guardians would feel the shift as he had pressure resolving into certainty, uncertainty squeezed out. They believe clarity is strength, he said, voice barely above thought. We will show them the cost of clarity. He extended his will not as command, but as alignment. Across distant territories, the 12 adjusted their positions. Not advancing, not retreating, positioning. In Terenfall, the second anomaly surfaced as conversation. A rumor moved faster than doctrine allowed. Not panic, not rebellion. A question. Why are they changing the routes again? Why do guards arrive before anything happens? Why does the city feel smaller? The questions did not spread widely. Doctrine absorbed them, redirecting gatherings, smoothing friction. But the questions did not disappear. They condensed. Seraphine felt the child's light respond, not flaring, not dimming, but storing. It recorded each constraint, each narrowed choice, each unspoken fear. This isn't resistance, she murmured. It's memory. She did not know why that frightened her more. Night fell again, and Terenfall did not slow. Lights aligned, movements synchronized. Silence deepened not from peace, but from predictability. Even crime adapted, shrinking into tolerances the system had already planned for. Above it all, Skyward watched the city's patterns stabilize into something elegant and severe. Balance had not yet been violated, but it was being negotiated unilaterally. Saren stood once more at the tower's edge, vision stretched thin. He could feel multiple futures compressing, converging toward a single outcome shaped by Doctrine's refusal to bend. "They're narrowing the world," he whispered, "and the world is noticing." Far below, Kale rested his hands on the stone of the rampart, feeling the vibration of a city that no longer argued with itself. "This won't end in revolt," he said quietly. Theron, standing beside him, did not disagree. "No," the Grand Master replied. "It will end in definition." Beyond the walls, Vaynar turned away from the city lights. "Soon," he said, and far above cloud and consequence, the Skyward Guardian shifted its wings just enough to disturb the air. Not intervention, acknowledgement. The city had declared what it valued. The shadows had decided how to answer. And the saga moved forward, not with fire, not with fear, but with certainty pressing against belief, until one of them finally broke. By the third cycle, Doctrine no longer announced itself. It anticipated. Corridors adjusted before congestion formed. Guards redirected movement without conscious instruction. Hands already raised in gestures learned too quickly to have been taught. Civilian schedules compressed subtly, minutes shaved, pauses removed, inefficiencies erased. Time itself felt narrower. Kyle noticed it first, not in the streets, but in himself. He found his steps sinking unconsciously with patrol cadence, his pauses shortening, his decisions arriving with less deliberation. He stopped walking. Around him, the city flowed past without interruption. "That's how it works," Thorn said quietly, appearing beside him. "If you don't resist it, it carries you." "And if you do?" Kale asked. Thorn watched a guard intercept a dispute before voices rose. "Then you become friction." High above, Saren felt the same, tightening but magnified. Futures no longer branched freely. They curved inward, converging along paths that Doctrine favored. Outcomes did not disappear. They were excluded. "This city is learning what not to imagine," he said softly. Below, the first quiet refusal spread. A dock crew completed its shift and did not disperse along assigned routes. They stood together, not in protest, not in defiance. Simply still, a pause long enough to confuse the system. Guards arrived. Protocol hesitated. No directive matched stillness without hostility. Kale stepped forward before correction could trigger. "They're not obstructing," he said. "Let them be." The system adjusted, routing flow around them. Order preserved, but something remained unresolved. Saren felt it like a hairline fracture. Beyond the walls, Varlock observed the pause ripple outward. Doctrine compensated cleanly, but compensation required margin. Margin reduced redundancy. Redundancy was where resilience hid. He smiled faintly. Not because the city was failing, because it was succeeding too well. Alaric sensed the same from afar. Doctrine had stripped uncertainty from the city's responses. What remained was conviction, clean, sharp, brittle. "They will not break under pressure," he said. "They will break under choice." In the deep shadow where form dissolved into intent, Vaynar allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The city's alignment was nearly complete. Belief had settled. Obedience followed. Soon, belief would be asked to contradict itself. Night deepened, and Terenfall glowed with regulated light. No flares, no surges, no chaos. A city perfected to endure. Above it, Skyward watched the glow stabilize into pattern. Balance held for now, but balance was no longer shared. It was enforced by structure, rather than consent. The Guardian felt the tilt extend beyond the city, tugging at the realm itself.